All right, everyone, this is the last section of body systems. So after this, I'll post some review, and then we'll have a test on units on sections 5 and 6, and then call it a year. Okay? I hope you guys are hanging in there. All right, so reproductive system. So we're going to start by reviewing how the cell divides. So for mitosis, you start with one diploid cell, meaning you have two copies of the genetic info, one from, and then you end with two diploid cells. Okay. There's no genetic variation, and these are body cells. So your body cells would have a copy of cells from mom and a copy of genetic info from mom and genetic info from dad. In meiosis, you start with a diploid cell, and then you make 4 haploid cells, which only have one copy. So there is genetic information there because of crossing over, and this produces sex cells. Okay, so for asexual reproduction versus sexual reproduction, asexual, you have one parent, no variation. This occurs with mitosis. You have identical offspring. An example of a species that goes through asexual reproduction would be bacteria. For sexual, you have two parents, you have genetic variation from crossing over, and then meiosis is used to make sex cells, and you have different offspring, and humans do this. Okay, so we're going to start with the male reproductive system. The functions of this system are producing sperm cells, depositing sperm cells into the female reproductive tract, and producing testosterone. Okay, so please fill in the boxes on this diagram. In your notes. And then we're going to go through different structures. Okay, so we're going to start with the testes. The two testicles are located in the scrotum. Their function is to produce sperm, to store sperm, and produce testosterone. Ducts provide a passageway for the sperm. The epididymis is where sperm matures. Vas deferens carries sperm to the urethra, and the urethra carries sperm and urine out of the body. Glands secrete liquids into ducts to provide a transport medium for sperm. These include the seminal vesicles, prostate glands, bulbourethral glands. Semen is reproductive fluid and sperm. Okay, so this is kind of just like the life of a sperm. So sperm are made in the testicles, they mature in the epididymis. The seminal vesicle and prostate gland add fluid to the semen. Oops, I skipped number 3. Sperm leaves through the vas deferens, then fluid is added to make semen, and then the semen leaves through the urethra. Okay. Sperm is a haploid gamete of males. A sperm cell consists of a head, a midpiece, and a tail. These are pictures of normal sperm versus abnormal sperm. So why is the sperm a haploid, not a diploid? It has one copy of the genetic info, so that when it combines with the egg, it will then have 2. What would happen to a sperm with no tail? It would not be able to make it to the egg. Okay, testosterone is produced in the testicle, or in the testes. Sorry, I was listening to my kids. I don't know what they're doing. Regulates sperm production and influences sex drive. This controls development of secondary characteristics. Testosterone is a hormone, so it must bind to what in order to work? It has to bind to a receptor. Okay, female reproductive system functions. Production of oocytes, which are eggs, growth and development of a fetus, production of estrogen, and progesterone. Okay, so take a minute to fill in the pictures there. All right, so ovaries are paired walnut-sized organs found in the pelvis. They are the site of egg production and maturation. They produce estrogen and progesterone, which are hormones. Okay, haploid, eggs are haploids. They're the female gamete. They are stored in the ovary and they are released into the oviduct. They are larger in size than sperm. Okay, oviducts transport an egg from the ovary to the uterus. Oviducts are the same as fallopian tubes. I think that's a more common name. This is the site of fertilization of the egg. So ovary releases egg into the fallopian tube, and that's where they would get fertilized, but it does not implant until it reaches the uterus. Okay, the uterus and vagina, thick muscular pelvic organ. It houses the growing embryo. If you're not pregnant, sheds the lining or endometrium each month. Cervix is the lower end or neck of the uterus. Vagina is the muscular tube opening to the outside of the body. If a woman is pregnant, will she shed her endometrium, like the lining of the uterus? No, because your egg is implanted there. Okay, menstrual cycle begins at puberty and ceases at menopause. Average is about 28 days. There are 4 stages: follicle stage, ovulation, corpus luteum stage, and menstruation. These are the different stages and what they do. The follicle stage is where the egg matures. Ovulation is when the egg is released from the ovary. Corpus luteum stage is when the corpus luteum forms from the follicle and secretes progesterone, which increases the uterine lining. And then menstruation, if fertilization doesn't happen, then shedding of the uterine lining occurs. This is just showing you that hormone levels change throughout your cycle. With ovulation, there's a spike in these two, and also estrogen. Progesterone increases later. Okay, so once again, this is just showing you the same kind of thing. Your hormone levels change throughout the cycle. All right, fertilization. Egg needs to be fertilized within 24 hours after ovulation. Egg is fertilized in the upper portion of the oviduct. 6 to 10 days later, the embryo implants in the uterine lining. If you have an ectopic pregnancy, that means that the egg implants in a location other than the uterus, like in the fallopian tube, and it's very dangerous for the mother. And it would not produce a viable offspring. Okay, fertilization. This is just a picture of the process again. So the egg is here, it gets fertilized by a sperm, just one. And then the cell begins to divide. And once you reach here, that's when mitosis and differentiation occur. Okay, so this I think is, you might need to flip ahead. So this just kind of explains what this diagram is. So you have egg plus sperm. Fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube. You produce the zygote. The zygote undergoes mitosis. It travels to the uterus and produces now it's called an embryo. The embryo then goes through more mitosis and cell differentiation, like they are assigned roles, and then you have a fetus. The fetus is provided nourishment through the placenta, and the amniotic sac and fluid protect it. Okay, so twins. My best friend is having identical twins basically any day now, so I'm super excited. This is fertilization by one egg by one sperm. The zygote splits while it's still a tiny cluster of cells. They have the same placenta. That's how you know you have identical twins. And they will have the same DNA. Fraternal twins, you have fertilization of 2 egg by 2 sperm. So it just happens that you have 2 eggs released. 2 zygotes form and they have 2 separate placentas. They would have their own sacs as well. And they have different DNA. So this is showing you identical twins, same placenta. They can have 2 separate sacs. They can also have 1. That's a little more high risk. And then in the fraternal twins, they have separate sacs and separate placentas. 1 egg versus 2 eggs. Okay, so structures necessary for fetal development. You need an umbilical cord that attaches the fetus to the placenta. It contains blood vessels that carry oxygen, nutrients, and waste. Placenta is the organ that nourishes and maintains the fetus, and the amniotic sac cushions and protects the fetus. So this is just a picture of the baby with its umbilical cord, and then the placenta. The umbilical cord is transferring the nutrients and the waste. Okay, trimesters of gestation. You have week 1 through 12 is called your first trimester. This is when conception occurs, implantation, and organ formation. The second trimester is weeks 13 through 28. This is where you have fetal growth. And then the third trimester is week 29 through 40, and you have fetal growth, milk production, and then birth. Okay, so the birthing process. Stage 1, you have dilation and effacement of the cervix. Stage 2, delivery of the baby. And then stage 3, delivery of the placenta. You have to get rid of basically all that stuff, or the mom can get sick. This is just a picture of the different stages of dilation. You have to get 10 centimeters before you can push the baby, and that's about the size of a bagel. Reproductive disorders. You can have infertility, which happens to a lot of people. The inability to get pregnant after 1 year of trying. Endometriosis is when the lining of the uterus, the endometrium, grows outside of the uterus. It's very painful. Sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, could be like a bacterial infection, viral, protozoal diseases, and it can cause damage to the reproductive organs. Okay, so there are some Regents questions in here. So if you, let's see how much, we're at like 12 minutes. Okay, so if you want to hit pause and practice those Regents questions, I'll bring them up and we'll go over the answers. Okay. All right, so number 1, the great variety of possible gene combinations in sexually reproducing species is due in part to the sorting of genes as a result of meiosis. That's the recombination or the crossing over part. 2, the reproductive system of human males produces gametes and transfers gametes to the female for internal fertilization. 3, this is a picture of a developing bird egg. The primary function of the egg is to continue the species through reproduction. 4, which process normally occurs at the placenta. This is materials are exchanged between fetal and maternal blood. 5, in animals, the normal development of an embryo is dependent on 4, mitosis and the differentiation of cells after fertilization has occurred. So you have to get a fertilized zygote, mitosis, and this becomes an embryo. Okay, 6. Fertilization and development normally occur in structures. 4 and 5. So fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube, and then development will occur in the uterus. 7, a heavy dose of radiation would have the greatest impact on genetic information in a future offspring if it reached gametes developing within which structure? A, and that's a picture of an ovary. 8, sexual reproduction involves the processes listed below. What is the order? So the answer is C. You first need to make the gametes. They need to fertilize, combine with one another. Mitosis occurs, and then differentiation. 9, which structure is correctly paired with its function? And that is choice 2, placenta, which allows nutrients to diffuse from the mother to the embryo. 10, the sorting and recombining of genes during meiosis usually leads to the production of 4 offspring with some traits that did not appear in their parents. 11, which statement best describes the relationship between the blood of a human fetus and blood of the mother? Their blood systems are separate, but certain materials can pass to one another from the placenta into the infant through the umbilical cord. And then 12, a large number of sperm are produced by male every day. This number of sperm increases the chance that 3, some of the sperm cells will survive to reach the egg. It's not, at first I said it was number 1 because I didn't read the whole thing, but when it says the eggs swim towards the sperm cell, no. Okay, 13. Which process is represented by the arrows in the diagram? That is mitosis. The same thing, it's just dividing in half each time. 14, the sequence represents reproductive process. To regulate similar events in human production, which adaptations are required? The presence of genes and chemicals in each stage in cells 1 through 7. Okay, and then that's it for the year. You survived. All right, so check Friday for some review, and then we'll have a little test on this section. And that's it. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.